that Subaru made gasoline-powered generators. Here's one example of it. As a matter of fact, Subaru made small engines for almost 40 years. They were well known in the North American section as Wisconsin Robin, which was then changed to Robin Subaru or simply Subaru because it had a broader name in the market, and they were basing that name off of their automobiles. They have since been bought out by Yamaha in 2016. But this one here happens to belong to my father-in-law. It's in need of a couple of little repairs. So let's put the history lesson aside and dive right in. So welcome to the shop, guys, and as always, I've got something new, something refreshing on the bench, and this happens to be a little generator, a little suitcase. It's a 1700 watt inverted suitcase, as I like to call them, and it runs really well. It's going to need a service because I don't remember the last time that the engine oil was replaced, but the main reason my father-in-law brought it into me was because the pull cord, as you can tell, has seen better days. So we're going to tackle that, and as well as many other little things along the way, I'm sure. Maybe clean up some of this stuff before somebody pokes an eye out, you know. Maybe just trim it up, make it look pretty. So let's start by removing some panels, and hopefully we can gain access to the ripcord, or sorry, to the recoil, I guess. I call it a ripcord, guys, because you're ripping on this when you're trying to start it. We might actually be able to gain access with just maybe removing these panels, hopefully. Otherwise, we're going to have to remove all of this and kind of put the engine on the bench. All right, let's see what we have under panel number 1. Well, we got it's a little bit dirty in there, as you can tell. I mean, it's well used. It's the main generator at camp, and unfortunately, this may be a long video. Check this out. So as I suspected, guys, this cord is right in there. I don't know how I'm going to get in there. I'm going to probably end up having to take all the plastics out and probably separate the generation part, or the generator part, I should say, from the engine. So let's just start tearing into it. All right, and in an effort to try and keep this video short, I'm going to do this part in high speed, which is probably going to take me somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 minutes, but to you guys, probably going to be like 10 seconds. Okay, so at this point, it looks pretty bare, but it's actually not all that bad. As you saw there, it's like 20 seconds, got it all apart. But what I'm going to have to do now is at the bottom, if I tip this thing over, you can see there are 4 bolts. I'm going to have to remove the 4 bolts from this main plate. And by doing so, I should be able to pull the motor and separate it from this motherboard. And at that point, I'll be able to, I believe, remove these 4 bolts. There's another 4 bolts over here. One tucked underneath there behind the wire. And we'll be able to do the recoil. Now, as you can imagine, while you're here, there's going to be a lot of while you're here's. We're going to check the valves right up underneath here. We're also going to do an oil change, because that's going to be nice and simple. And give it a very good cleaning, because as you can tell, just over many years of running this thing out in the, ew, gross. The fan kind of absorbs a lot of dust, and of course, when you're building something out in, using your tools and all that stuff, a lot of sawdust flying around. So anyways, we're going to give it a good cleaning as well. So, oh, and I guess we should probably check and clean the air filter, because if the inside looks like that, you can almost guarantee the air filter is going to be pretty dirty too. Okay, so in order to make a little bit more room and make it a little bit less cumbersome, I'm going to pinch off the fuel line right here. And there you go. It's not leaking. So we're going to put that just over like that. And maybe disconnect any of the wiring that might go to this motherboard. Now, like I've said in some of my previous videos, if you're not sure where any of this stuff goes, it's really great as a tool to have is a phone. Because every telephone now has a camera on it. Snap a few pictures. I've got videos to go by, so that's great. But I'm going to disconnect a couple of connectors. It doesn't seem to be that many. And then we're going to undo the bolts. And this engine should just kind of come right off this plate. We got one over here. Disconnect this guy. One over here. This one as well. I think. Oh, we got one more. Now the good news is as well, they're all a little bit different and the colors match on either side of the plug. So you can kind of follow that as well. And now we should be able to put this, it's not going to matter because we're changing the oil anyways. So we're going to put this on its side. Pull this out. Oh yeah, I like butter. Oh, one more hose before we go too far, and that's for your vacuum. There's a little vacuum pump here going into the crankcase, just like that. And we also have your throttle cable. Always use the right wrench, people. That way there you can't strip any hardware. Now, one thing as well, when it comes to these connections with the throttle, you want to kind of set those as close as possible as to where they are. So, something you can do is you can take yourself a paint marker. It just happens to be a track marker for when you're putting in studs in a snowmobile. Just give yourself a little mark on either side of the cable. So when you put it back in place, you know it's going to be exactly where it used to be. Just like that. Pull it out. You got your marks on either side. Really hard to mess up. But with my luck, I still will. I think we're free. I think we're home free now. I think we can pull the engine out. Are we home free? Nope. We got another grounding cable. And now we have the engine apart. Perfect. Put this aside. Let's split the engine away from the generator. Alright, so when we're pulling these 4 bolts, we're going to try and be extra careful not to drop them inside the magneto, because it is, it's going to have some magnetism for sure. It's going to want to stick to anything that's made of metal. And you don't want anything falling in there and then you first start it up and it grinds its way out. That would not be a good day. So let's crack these loose with a wrench, I think. Get a bit of grip on this guy. Oh boy. There it is. Yep, that's definitely tight. Well, that one wasn't so bad. What about this one? Oh, that one's pretty tight. There it is. Yeah, so I have to undo all these by hand. Maybe except for that one. Okay. Now let's see if this thing lets us gain access. So we've got the magnets kind of working against us. Got a pretty strong pull. Oh, there you go. Woo. Okay. All right. Okay. Now can I repair it? No. No, I can't. I gotta pull the flywheel off. Really? Well, I'm gonna tell you guys that if you're doing this job, don't cheap out on your ripcord or your recoil rope. Don't go out and buy cheap stuff. Buy the good stuff, because you're not going to want to do this again. Trust me. Okay guys, so what do you think? You think that nut is going to be left hand, or is it going to be just regular thread on there? So I'm going to just kind of give it a couple of burps on the regular, normal, you know, lefty tighty, or righty tighty, lefty loosey kind of thing. See if it wants to come loose. And it's just regular threads. So that's good. The actual fly magnet. Check it out. And this is where I'm going to need a puller. Okay, so my puller's a little bit on the small side. So it's basically just a washer is kind of holding everything together right now. But hopefully this isn't too tight. I'm just going to kind of give it a bit of a tighten and see how it wants to move. And then we'll go from there. But I'm also going to use a screwdriver to stop it from turning. Beautiful! Oh, I kind of like it when certain things work out. Alright, and once that flywheel is removed, we can finally gain access to this rope. And I mean, check out this mechanism, how that works. Kind of cool. So probably gonna have to, let's see here, maybe remove the circlip, or I might actually be lucky and just be able to completely pull the rope out and replace it with a good quality rope. My father-in-law gave me a bunch of rope that probably would be fine, but I trust this one. I've been using this style rope for many years. I believe it's actually a still rope replacement. I've been purchasing it at the same store for a long time, like I say, and I've had very good success with it. And if I'm this far into it, I'm going to spend the extra few dollars for him and give him a good rope. So let's put the camera down and let's get replacing this rope. Okay, so when it comes to doing these types of repairs, guys, there's really no tricks when it comes to replacing a rope. Everybody has their own. What works for me is I like to just completely pull out the rope to where it was pre-wound. I'm going to pull out the knot right from the center. I'm going to cut it while holding it from returning. So you almost need 3 hands sometimes when you're doing this type of work, or maybe a good pair of locking pliers to keep things in place if you need some help. So now I'm going to take a good idea, take a look at the length, I should say, and at this point I'm going to feed the new rope. There it is, hopefully. And this is in better shape. Where's the, there you go. Yeah, so you almost have to be prepared with certain things. So there you go. Tip number 1, make sure that you burn the end of the rope so that you're ready for this and not have to remove your hand from the recoil if you're holding it. So I like to put a nice knot, leave yourself enough tail on it so that it doesn't slip off. And put it back into its home. There you go. Now you're going to let the rope rewind itself where it wants to be. And I usually go until the rope wants to kind of bind on itself, which is usually much more than was in there before. So that's a little bit much. So I'm probably going to stop right about here. And just for fun, I'm going to go to the end like this and measure the old rope length and cut it approximately where it was. But like I said, I like to go an inch or so longer, sometimes more. And that ensures that I'm not going to have any issues later. Let's say I mess up my knot, I can do one again. And when you start the engines, because I mean many engines use this type of style starter system, you're not always pulling to the end of this knot, because a lot of times this knot will break inside, and that's just not a good day. Oh, you just need to get this fitting, or this guide I should say, this rope guide, onto this rope, like so. I'm going to tie this rope down right over here so that it does not want to go back. And at this point, we're going to do a little bit of a cleanup in here. This is fine, there's nothing going on in here. Maybe clean up the connectors. This one's pretty good. And of course, you guys know me, if you've ever seen the channel, I put dielectric grease on every connector when I'm into a big job like this. So you can guarantee that I'm going to be doing exactly that. So at this point, we've got the engine back onto the plate, or in the frame as you want to call it, so we can start making some connections. We're going to just go one at a time here. Doesn't matter which one we start with, as long as we make sure that they are all nice and tight. Okay, after you're satisfied and you know you've done most of your connections, we can move on to something that I've always wanted to check out, was the plug. There's no reason as to why the plug should be replaced, but it is an older unit, so as a preventative caution, or maintenance I should say, I'm going to remove it and just kind of take a look at the spark plug and see how much wear there is on the electrodes and see if there's any carbon buildup. This one's kind of neat because you actually have a coil on plug setup, just kind of like you would have on some cars. So there's no spark plug lead. You just pull the coil right off, and we're going to remove the plug. And just like that. Okay, and there you have it. So this plug is actually in really good shape. You can tell it's burning really well, and it's a BMR48 NGK. And you know what? I may actually have one of these in stock, and if I do, like everything else, while you're in there, you may as well replace it. Alright, so I don't actually have one in stock. However, I would feel much better just spending the extra few dollars and replacing it. The next thing I'd like to check out is the valves. I want to make sure that the valves are actually in good shape. I can't find any information on what the valve clearance should be, but all I'm really looking for is to make sure that it's not they're not hung up. Because sometimes you can find information on the data plates like this one, and unfortunately nothing there either. So I know this has never been pulled before, so I'm going to take my time and just be gentle with this. So I try not to rip any gaskets, but luckily this isn't as old as my motorhome, so I might have a bit better luck with that. And I got it, so that's perfect. I didn't tear that one, that's amazing. And just using experience here, guys, I'm going to grab a feeler gauge. It's about 5 thou to 7 thou. And if I got clearance, I'm going to call it good. Okay, so here's 5 thou. And that's a little bit loose on the intake. Perfect on the exhaust. Where is my 7 thou? 7 thou right here. So the intake is a little on the loose side, so we give that just a bit of a tweak. It's much better now. Perfect there. Perfect, so they're both set at 7 thou. That should help a little bit. So we can go ahead and put the valve cover back in place. And now would be a good time to flip this engine around so you guys can see it. And take a good look at the air cleaner. So we'll fix that up. Let's open it up and see. It's probably just a foam, as it is. And it's really not all that bad, actually. I'm pretty impressed. I'm just going to clean this off with a rag. And this one here, as you can tell, is already nicely saturated with some oil. Or maybe not. There's only a little bit left. So I might saturate it just a bit more with some good quality air filter oil. So this one here happens to be made by Uni. Whoa! Whoa! Well, that was a lot more than I wanted. Not paying attention here. So we're just gonna work it in. As you can tell, this stuff is super sticky, so the idea is that the oil will attract any kind of dirt or particles trying to make their way through the filter. So that will be now lubricated for a long, long time. Let's throw that back in place. And we're going to clean out this little guy in the parts washer. And then we're going to put that back in place. All right, now that that's nice and clean, we're going to pop that back in its place. That's easier said than done, apparently. Just like that. And then we're going to move on to changing the oil. So I got my trusty oil pan down below. I'm going to set the camera so you guys can see it. And hopefully, I won't make a mess. Where's my drain pan? Right there. There you go. Loosen off the fill port so that it can drain out a little bit quicker. And I think that's about it. Nice. And I would say it's at this point that you want to check to make sure that your pull cord, or your rib cord as I like to call it, is still actually going to work. I don't have the plug in place, so it's going to be easier to turn over, but now's a good time. Because if you have to do this again, it would be the time to do it without having to take everything apart and rebuilding it yet again. At this point, I'm going to put it all back together, and I'm going to take a chance that I can reinstall this with the panels installed. So let's go back to some more high speed. Alright guys, here she is all back together, except of course for a fresh spark plug. I'm going to go pick one up tomorrow after work, and then we're going to meet back here. We're going to start it up, and we're going to see how well she runs, and we're going to test the electrical to make sure that it actually produces some power. Alright guys, so it's been a week, actually, believe it or not, since I got the spark plugs. I ordered that, and it took me about a week to get it. And also, as you can tell, maybe the volume is a little bit different, but you've also maybe noticed I'm wearing a microphone. So yeah, I would like for you guys to comment down below, see if you like it better that way. I'm trying to not yell, because I'm usually trying to project my voice to the camera or to my phone, because I record off my phone. So please let me know what you think. But anyways, let's get back into it. All we need to do is throw a new fresh spark plug in here. It must be a special number or something, because I mean, just a little tiny plug. So, and as always, a little bit of dielectric grease goes a long way on some of these connections. And actually, I should have done that after. What am I doing? Microphone's throwing me off here. So let's pop it back in here. Then we'll put that dielectric grease in the boot here. That's the best place for it. That's half a turn and 3/4. And if you guys ever wonder what the torque on a spark plug is, believe it or not, some of these will actually have it on the box. So this one here, it depends whether or not you have a crush gasket or not. But this one will tell you 1/2 to 2/3 of a turn with the crush washer. So there we are, we're just about there. So let's throw the coil pack in place. Feels so weird talking softly. That about does it there. Now let's put the cover back in place. Oh, let's make sure that our oil hasn't gone anywhere. Not that I think it has, but still looking great. Because the next thing we're going to do is start it up and run a space heater, because this is rated for 1700 and some, yeah, 1700 watts, I believe, peak. And my space heater is 1500 watts. So it should run it fairly well. And I should also note, guys, don't run any generator or any internal combustion engines indoors by any means. I got my 2 windows behind me open, and I also have the garage door open, so I got plenty of airflow in here right now. So let me just tighten this up. All right, let me turn this. Well, I guess I had it right this way. An extra part. Well, that sucks. Let's open that up again, because this covers And this is a cover for the spark plug. Yeah, you never want extra parts when you're doing a job like this, guys, because there usually isn't any extra parts. Okay, let me see here. Now this should do. We'll pull start it this way. Let's get the heater right over here. We know we're getting oil. We should have some gas. Open the vent. I don't know how much gas we have in there. Not much. If we don't start, probably why. All right, so let's see here. Choke. And we're not going to put the autosave on, because it just starts a little bit easier that way. And let's see if it happens. What happens here? Oh, she kicked. Let's take the choke off, maybe. And of course, guys, it's probably empty of gas. I got a very good suspicion that that's what it is. He couldn't give it to me with at least a little bit of gas in it. Anyways, I'll be right back with some gas. All right, let's put enough gas in here to make sure we can run it for at least a few minutes. All right, that should do. Actually, that's almost full now. Not a big tank in there. Okay. No. Let's put this away first. Okay. Let's put the choke back on. And let's try this again. So hopefully, she'll get started pretty easily. There she goes. By the way, it runs a lot better with gas. So let's put the Eco Save on now. Let her calm down a little bit. And she purrs pretty good. I'm very impressed. So, she runs well. Let's plug it in. See if we can get some heat coming out of this heater. Start with going to the first one. The first one is 750 watts. As you can tell, it kicked in pretty quickly. It's ramping up. So that's kind of nice actually, because it doesn't just snap to max throttle, it ramps itself up nice and slow. And actually this is going to be a good test for my microphone as well, to see how much noise cancellation it does. Shall we see if it does 1500 watts? It's holding out. That's good. Ooh, that's hot. It's working. It's holding out. It's holding. Come on, baby. I would say that's pretty darn close to the continuous load rating. So let's bring her down here. Let's let her cool off. And that's on the power saving mode. So if we remove that mode, we get a little bit more RPM, probably a little bit more continuous power. But to be able to run 1500 watts continuous out of a small suitcase like this, I think it's pretty impressive. So let's shut her down here. And that's about it. So again, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Probably a little bit on the long side. I didn't expect that this ripcord or recoil rope was going to be such a big deal to replace. Hope you stuck around to the end of this video to at least see what my new mic sounds like. Again, don't forget to comment down below as to what you think of it. I got two different types of mic that I'm testing. This is the first one. I have a smaller version And I'm thinking maybe if the longer videos, I'm not sure how long these mics will last on battery power. So it'd be nice to just be able to continuously switch them up and keep talking. So anyways, I appreciate it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, like I said, and I will see you guys in the next video.